There are people out there right now who are starting businesses.
Absolutely.
We know exactly what that feels like.
You're right in front of them, so it's like having a billboard that you're actually putting right in front of somebody's face.
When you're considering adding corporate apparel to your brand, these are some things that you should consider.
A lot of website companies, they build it and then they have the ownership of it, and then you don't. You want to own your website. Hi, welcome to the Marketing Compass podcast, where we try to navigate you through the ever-changing world of marketing. So today we're going to talk a little bit about apparel. Nick has been getting a lot of questions lately about apparel. People have been ordering, and sometimes people just order and they don't know what is next. What are the next steps? So we want to just break that down, go through some ins and outs. So why don't you start by talking about reasons for ordering apparel? I think some people have, one reason they order every year or quarterly, and they don't really think about all of the options. So what are some of the options?
Yeah, so we really see apparel orders from businesses come through two main areas, and that's to clothe the team, right? To give them branded gear that they can wear. Sure. Yes, please see all of the branded Blue River stuff everywhere. And then the second one is for event-based pieces. So if they've got a team outing, those are good to have matching gear for outings and team building to 5Ks or corporate sponsored events and things like that, where you want a large number of garments to hand out to everybody. But we typically see those happening around, even like giveaway time frames for like events that you go to that you want to give to your customers, or even dealerships keep them in stock and give them to new customers and things like that. So there's a number of ways or reasons why people would want to order corporate apparel.
So when you say both of those options, there's very different quantities there. So how do people choose? Like if there's a team, you can ask your team members, what sizes you are, but what about choosing sizes for an event that's pretty flexible? Yeah, so I think there's two different questions there, right? So I think one is how do you choose your quantity? And so that really, it's much easier to do for an event. You probably have pre-registered folks, or maybe you just know from previous years that we normally have 300 people come to this event. So those are typically pretty simple, and those are normally just like a simple T-shirt, right? Okay. Whereas on the other end, if you're ordering for your team, it really just depends on how many team members you have, how many different garments you want them to have, if you want something for every day of the week, so it's important for your decoration company to be flexible, right? To be able to run smaller orders or larger orders, right? But there's obviously a benefit of ordering more. If you order in quantity, there's discounts. Especially in screen printing, embroidery, you see this a little bit, not as much as screen printing, but you have fixed costs that are in there. That's built into the costs. So the more you run, the more garments you're able to divide that cost out over, right? So if you need 10 T-shirts, it's going to cost a whole lot more because you've got setup fees and costs to the screens and the ink that you spread out 10 times in comparison to that same style shirt printed 100 times. Now you're dividing that typically somewhere around $40 worth of expense, 20 to 40 depending on the complexity of it, on a screen print, divided by 10 or divided by 100. And that really affects the per piece cost. So keep that in mind. Even if you are in need of, maybe you have a smaller team, maybe you have 5 or 6 or 10 people that you want to order for. Maybe just think about, maybe other ways that you can order. Maybe instead of just T-shirts, maybe you have a T-shirt and a hoodie. Or maybe you order a couple for throughout the week. So that way you're able to get that quantity up a little bit to make the per piece price a little bit cheaper. And that should be the case for anywhere you go. And that you're saying the same imprint on
on that piece? Is that
In most cases, yeah. So different shops do it different ways.
Okay.
For us, as long as it's the same color, let's say screen printing or embroidery or direct to film or heat press, any method, if it's the same color, same size, same color, then we'll put it on any garment you want.
okay?
Now there's some companies that do it differently because there is setup expense in changing out from a hoodie to a t-shirt to a backpack to a ball cap. So there's time involved in there. That's something that you want to look into and kind of see what's right for you. But for us, it's you need 40 shirts. They all have the same graphic. We'll take care of it as 40 of them.
So something something that I've learned since I've been here, there's different sizes. So typical sizes, right? Like, but what about if I want to put it on a onesie for a baby? Is that the same typically as like a regular imprint t-shirt, or how does that?
Great question, because we do get that a lot, and not only from an adult size to a onesie, but even within the adult sizes, from a small to a 3X, you don't want a 10.5-inch graphic across your chest that works okay. It's pretty big on a small,
right,
but then it's really small on a 3X, right? So you want to have some flexibility there. When you're screen printing that, it becomes expensive because then you have to break down how many smalls that we need at this size, how many 3X do we need at this size. So that's where it's really important to find an apparel company, a decoration company that has some options, right?
Okay.
So this is the big reason why that example right there is the big reason why we pursued so heavily direct to film DTF as an option for decorating our apparel.
Okay.
Because with that, we digitally print with ink on film transfers and then heat press them to shirts.
Okay.
By doing that, we can do full color, we can do some gradients, and now we can do any size that you want. It's just based on the square inches of usage space that you have on the film transfer.
Okay.
So now, from before, like you have we'll just say $20 cost on a screen that you now have to divide up amongst all the smalls. Then you have another $20 cost of a screen that you have to divide up between the mediums through extra large.
Sure.
And then the 2X has its own, the 3X has its own, the 4X has its own. And then you have all these extra $20 expenses that just really skyrockets the price of the per piece item on your shirts.
Yeah.
Direct to film eliminates that. It doesn't matter. You can just tell us you need 50 t-shirts and you want a couple of onesies and you want some smalls and you need a couple 4Xs, and we'll figure that out. We'll make that work for you, and you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what's I need to find a size in the middle that looks good here and here, but would also work on the onesie. So
Yeah, that's tricky.
it's really tricky.
Oh man.
We'll take care of that for you.
That's good. That's good. How do you make the right choices for your apparel order? Like, say, I don't know. How do you choose the right garment?
Yeah, that's a tough one too, right? Because every year the garment manufacturers come out with really cool new options.
And it's hard as a consumer to just see a picture and say, I like that.
Yeah, the
And
catalogs are
that's the right
helpful.
choice.
We have stacks of catalogs that anyone can pick up and take. We've got the big ones and we got the small ones. We call them the Essentials catalog. The Essentials catalog still has way too many to choose from.
Yeah.
But it really depends more on what your needs are. This really goes bigger picture to who we are and how we ask the questions and what is your intent? What are you trying to accomplish?
Sure.
I had a gentleman come in the other day and really wanted postcards, and we got to talking about why he wants postcards, and we gave him some different options. We do a lot of postcards. We send tens of thousands of them a week, but it may not be the perfect choice for you. We need to ask some questions and understand. With apparel, you may really want, say, example, Bella Canvas, which I had a customer we spoke with about Bella Canvas this morning.
Which is a brand.
Fantastic brand.
Yeah.
Of garment, incredibly soft. They're known for their soft material.
Yeah.
But they're a little expensive.
Sure.
So it's up to the apparel company to make recommendations, decoration company. Like so that's what we did. Hey, we have a comparable brand that has similar weight, similar material makeup, similar wearability. That we would recommend, and it's going to save you a couple of dollars per shirt. You can certainly go the name brand route and go that route. We have customers that just love Vela Canvas, and that's what they want. Same thing with Nike and Adidas and Under Armour and things like that. These are brands that people love because they wear well and they fit them well.
Yes.
But we have options, and we would like to make recommendations. So that's what we do.
Sure.
Is make
Especially with
recommendations.
T-shirts, because you're not necessarily seeing a Vela Canvas mark
Logo
anywhere on the T-shirt. It's just the feel and the wearability.
Yeah. So you can certainly come in and check for a catalog, grab the little magazine, and take it and browse through it. We've got links. Most apparel companies would have links to the distributors that you can browse and pick through. Thousands of options. So we don't typically recommend that. You can wait and ask for a recommendation, which we do most of the time. That's what we would prefer, understanding what you want to get out of the garment, and then we'd make a recommendation on there. And then you can also ask for samples. So I encourage you to do that. Make sure when you ask for samples, you make sure you understand the fees that might be associated with that. For us, we don't charge anything as long as we get it back by a certain date, so we could restock it at the distributor. Okay. So we have a 30-day period that we would like it back so we can get it shipped back if you don't use it.
Is there a number to that? If samples, are you saying just one sample to feel the fabric, or a sample per each size so that you can see how the sizing runs, or how does that work?
So it really is different for lots of different businesses. For us, we just want to do what's right for you as the business and what you need. So in some cases, it's about sizing. In some cases, we just we need to get a sample in of each size so people can come in and try them on, or we could send all the sizes with you, and then you have your team try them on to get it fit right. Others just need it to be able to know this is the right shirt for me. This is the one that I want. So in that case, then we'll just order in a couple samples of some different brands and different weight of materials and let them feel them and try them there. So we have a lot in stock of the popular ones, but it's pretty well impossible to have every color, make, model in stock. So we have some great distributors. Sanmar, One Stop, SNS Activewear, kind of the big ones. The three big ones that most everyone uses. We have 2 or 3 other ones that we use for select brands if we need them. But you should be able to have your apparel company get a hold of those fairly quickly. So one thing to keep in mind, though, when you're working with other apparel companies, so we order apparel every day. So we don't have shipping costs. We have reached a level where we're ordering so often from the distributor, the blank materials in, that they don't charge us shipping to get them here.
Okay.
That's not the case for everyone, so you need to keep that in mind, to have some grace in that. When you're talking with your apparel company, asking for some samples, we can order a sample. If we get the order in by 3:00, we can have it the next morning by 11.
Wow.
It ships up from, in most cases it ships up from Cincinnati. Columbus. It's Columbus.
Okay.
Yeah. One of those C word Ohio cities, right? Columbus, Cincinnati. I think it's Cincinnati. I don't know. But yeah, we can have it the very next day. So that helps us out a lot because we don't have to stock everything. And we tried when we first started Blue River. We had a whole row of shirts, colors all the way around the building, and it just was too much to try to make sure we had it all.
That's all that was in the building, right?
That's all that was in the building. So now we have samples of the garment, and so that way you can kind of feel their weight and their texture and how they're going to feel in stock. And then if you need special sizes or colors, we'll order it in.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you see those polyester blend and cotton blend, and what in the world does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it is nice to feel it.
It is.
So how do you select the decoration? Well, first of all, what is the decoration method? And how do you select it?
Sure.
Because, there's a million choices. What's best and how do you choose?
So I don't want to scare anybody by going through all this because there's a lot here that you kind of need to think about. And if you find a good apparel company, a good decorator, then they should be able to walk through this with you and answer these questions for you, ask you the right questions, and lead you down.
Because typically it all depends on the why, right?
It does, absolutely does.
Why do you need it this way? And then, you know, someone can work with you as to fixing the why, you know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so once you know that why, then you can make recommendations on the decoration method. And the way you decorate determines how long it's going to last, how it's going to wear, how cheap or expensive it ends up being.
Sure.
So what we typically do is we'll make the recommendation. I'll say they need t-shirts. Most of the time when it comes to t-shirts, you're either going to be embroidery or I'm sorry, not embroidery. You're not going to be embroidery. Screen printing or direct to film. For t-shirts. Typically don't do embroidery on t-shirts. Sometimes that is the case and that we address that if that's what they really want. Sometimes it'll be like a thicker, maybe a Carhartt type brand t-shirt that they'd like their name on it, and that's totally fine, and we do those from time to time. But most of the time it's either screen printing or direct to film. And we just talk about the why, you know, so how are you going to use it, what's the quantity you need, how many colors is going to be on it. Then we can determine what's the best way to get you the most affordable option possible.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. We want to talk about setting a due date.
Oh.
How,
Yeah.
you know, I think certain methods probably take longer than others. How does...
In some cases, yeah. So definitely that goes into the consideration on our end. Our goal is 2 weeks or less.
Okay.
There's a bit larger orders or more complex orders. Sometimes takes a little longer than that, but we'll give you all those time frames up front. So what I would recommend, just as a general rule of thumb for decorating companies all over, try to give a month if you can.
Okay.
Not everyone has machines like we do. Some have much larger than us. Some have much smaller than us. But I would say start with a month. Our company, we try to do 2 weeks or less. But if you start with a month, it gives you time to make changes. And consider what all goes into that as well. So not only, that's not like, you know, if today I want to order apparel. And for our company, we've got mock-ups and designs to consider, apparel to order in, approvals to receive, and then the production process to fit in our schedule, right? So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces that goes into play once you say I need to order some apparel. So by going over this list here, it's really going to help streamline that. If you know what you need going in and what answers or what questions I'm going to be asking at the beginning, it helps speed up that process. But there's a process of approval for of a design. So if it's a really complex design and you're gonna want a lot of revisions on it, pushes that time frame out a little bit. So especially if you have like a date, right? If you have an event coming up, try to plan as early as you can for that. Your decorator company should be flexible and try to fit the project in the best they can, but there's always limitations, right? There's always things that just can't work around,
right?
So if, like for Richardson ball caps is a good example. They're out on the West Coast, so it takes a few days for the blanks to get here before we could even start embroidering on them. So there's some other options out there. Sanmar now is a distributor that has, actually have for a couple of years now, but Sanmar has some of the Richardson cap colors. Okay. And that's where most apparel shops are ordering through Sanmar rather than being a dealer through Richardson. But you don't get all the color options if you don't go through Richardson. So so it just kind of depends on how quick you need it, and if they have them in stock or they need to ship them from another location. So all those are things. So I would recommend try to start planning early. But one thing that we know in the business that we do, it's going to happen. You forget, you run out of time, you get super busy. So your apparel company should be flexible and want to try to figure out a way to make it work.
Right. Or at least, you get closer to the day, you're going to incur rush costs probably to speed things up. Yeah. But then at a certain point, you do hit a wall where, you just can't speed it up any more than it is. So,
Right.
planning ahead, that's
Plan ahead.
important.
It's important. Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy sometimes. How frequently would you say it's pretty standard to order new apparel for?
Yeah,
your
so
team?
that's a tough one because it really is, again, goes back to that why you're ordering the garments to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, our companies that we work with order a set number of times per year. Most of the time, 2 or 3 times a year for corporate apparel,
Mm-hmm.
one time a year for the event-based pieces. If it's a construction team, a landscape team, they're worn harder.
Mm-hmm.
They work in that gear, so they don't last as long as someone that just orders gear for the team and
Sure.
they work through them over the span of the year. And that also kind of goes into play in the consideration of what kind of decoration method we use,
Mm-hmm.
because screen printing is definitely going to last the longest.
Mm-hmm.
We're typically looking at 100 to 120 washes with screen printing,
Okay.
and direct to film, depending on what process we use. The quickest, cheapest route to go, you could see, probably 50 to 70 washes, and then the more complex and higher end, the nicer print machines, you're seeing 75 to 100 washes for those ones. So that goes back to the why, and when the apparel companies that kind of asking questions on how you plan on using them and what your goal is here. Are you looking for get as cheap of a garment as possible, or are you wanting to make this garment last all summer for your team?
Right.
What's the goal? And that's should be up to the apparel company to make the right recommendation on what to do with that. Yeah.
And seasonally too, right? Sometimes there's garments that are better ordered for the summer and
Of course.
for the
Yeah.
winter. I don't know. Right now I'm wearing a zip up, and it's the middle of the summer, but I think sometimes in the hot weather, the air conditioner
Well, Ryan
pumped up.
is like sitting in a cooler.
Yes.
So he keeps the air conditioner pretty cool
Yep.
in the summer. So we always have layers. I've got the closet in my office that my kids tease me that I'm like Mr. Rogers, because I'll come in and trade jackets and hang it up. And
There you go.
One of the benefits of working at a company like we have, we've got gear laying around all over the place that we can just pull on.
Yes, totally. Except I wear the same 2 pieces over and over again because they're my favorite.
Yep.
Yeah. So, how do you select the right vendor? Our goal is to not just promote Blue River Digital, but to promote you finding the right fit for your company.
Yeah.
So, what's the best criteria for choosing a shop?
Yeah, so a few things there. And we recognize that you may not be listening local, and it may not be a great financial move to order from us if we're shipping finished products to you to California. Some cases it works out that way.
We might be. So
We
it's
might
worth
be.
checking.
It's totally worth checking. We do this for our partners all over the United States.
Sure.
So we just want to be a blessing to you anywhere you're at. On the same hand, you may be local, but you may have a great partnership with your apparel company already.
Right.
And we want to be here for you for different reasons. If you've got a great relationship, stick with it. That's great. If they're not delivering for you, if you're not meeting deadlines, or quality's bad, or communication's bad, that's where we want to shine, right?
Sure.
So what to look for? In a nutshell, everything we just talked about, right? So you want a apparel company, decoration company that you can trust, that you know that you can get away with that email, of just that email or that text or that phone call that says, I need to order some apparel for my event.
Yeah.
And they can walk you through the steps on getting to where you need to be. One thing that I enjoy doing is just making the recommendation. So I'll try to gather as much information on my own. If they say that we got an event coming up on the 28th and we need some gear for, then I'll do some research and find out what event they're talking about, how many people normally come if I can find that information, and then I'll start making a recommendation before even coming back asking questions. Because if I could start with some recommendations, you typically have 100 people at this event.
and it's maybe it's a 5K, right? So a 5K means you probably have some on the fitter side, the leaner side, right?
Yeah.
So I can make assumptions about the sizes that you need.
Sure.
So I can suggest 20, 20, 20, 20 on quantities and sizes. I know your brand, I know your colors, so I can make a recommendation on an affordable t-shirt for a 5K event like that, and I could send it your way. And then now it's just questions back and forth on making it fine-tune adjustments. I really was hoping to have all my sponsors on the back, and we probably will need a few more 2X and 3X than what you have here in small and medium. So we just make the adjustment on the quantities there. Or this year we think we're going to have a larger crowd, so can we bump that up to 120 instead of 100? Just kind of gets the ball started and rolling. But really, just like with anything in marketing, you just want a partner that you can trust, that's going to have the best in mind for you, what's easiest for the printing process, what is best in mind for you and how you're going to use it, and someone just interested and willing to dig in and ask more questions.
Yeah. So if you were receiving an email from a customer, ideally, the initial email would include the event or the reason, the why, the quantity, the material preferences, what type of shirt, what type of apparel, and then any, like, I think sometimes people have strong opinions and they don't let them out for us to know. So anything that is really important to them. Is there anything that I'm missing there? I guess the timeline, right?
Yeah, you started with the first one, which is probably most important, and that's the date.
Right.
The date that you need it in hand by. And then everything else gets set in motion off of that date. We start working back to make sure that we have everything done on time. Knowing if we need to ship it or if we're delivering it, if you're coming to us to pick it up. All those things can kind of go into the final calculation of timing and pricing and everything like that. But
awesome.
Yeah. So I would just say, just as much details as you can provide, and if you don't know, that's fine.
And we'll fill in the gaps.
Fill in the gaps. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add?
I didn't talk much about embroidery, and that's okay. But embroidery is a big piece of this too. The questions don't really change much outside of quantity and how you want to use it. But one thing that to consider in your embroidery is your design, right? So obviously, the bigger the embroidery piece, the more stitches, the higher the cost. So you want to try to be reasonable in size. We typically are, between 3 1/4 and 4 inches wide for a hat or a left chest. 4 inches is pretty big on a left chest.
Sure.
So it's amazing how 1/4 inch is really that much different. But and again, it depends on size of the garment. But that determines the number of stitches and then how the design is done. So make sure you're asking questions about how they digitize your logo and make sure that it's a tight pattern and it's going to look nice when it's embroidered. Number of colors and complexity of the embroidery is really important to consider. Gradients are challenging to do on an embroidery, so if you can simplify it down to one color or a couple of colors instead of gradients, that helps a lot, and especially on pricing. But yeah, your apparel shop should be able to walk you through those questions when they come up.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Nick, for informing us and filling us in. Thank you guys for joining us. You can find our podcast on our website at blueriverd.com. It's under news and then podcast. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to see our faces. Otherwise, you can listen to us on any of the major podcast platforms.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, thanks guys.